Mr. Breedlove, what is one question you would have for Mr. Schiff, or one point of yours that you would like for him to address?
Man, I really wanted to get into this because, Schiff, I heard you say on one of your podcasts, you said, can you think of one example in human history where something that man has made that he did not make better later? And I think you were using that as an example of like, oh, the first airplane was not the best airplane. The first automobile was not the best automobile. The first phone was not the best phone. And you were using that as an argument against Bitcoin, basically. And I actually have a really good answer to that question. I'm supposed to ask you a question now. Then,
well, no, you can either make a point and have him respond, or ask him a question. So please make this point, and Mr. Schiff will respond.
I'll try to deliver my point quickly, and I would love to hear your reply. I think the confusion arises because Bitcoin's not a consumer good. Bitcoin is it's a protocol, right? It's something much more like a language. And I think the one thing that man did create that man has not subsequently make better is the number zero and the Hindu Arabic numeral system. I wrote about this in a piece called The Number Zero in Bitcoin. We got the Hindu Arabic numerals from 5th century India, the Hindus. It was passed into Europe through the Middle East, so that's why we call it the Hindu Arabic numeral system. And it didn't reach Europe until roughly the 12th century. This was something that was ideologically resisted. Like it contravened what the church was telling people, right? That there was no infinity and no void. Well, zero represented the void, and it also implied infinity. It was made illegal at one point. Like it was very resisted. Yet, it was basically this unstoppable idea because it served the self-interest of merchants. It let them perform calculation better, faster, cheaper, and with less error. And I go on in the piece to talk about how transformative zero was. Zero ultimately gave us calculus. Calculus gives us everything in modern science, right? Building bridges.
Yeah, although zero is more
population growth. Well, again, yeah, it's an idea. It's an idea, right? But it was an unstoppable idea. And I think that that's basically what Bitcoin is that we have created another unstoppable idea, the idea of a money supply with 0% change, right? A fixed supply money. And
yes,
gold is selected. Sorry, let me finish the point. I'd love for you to respond. Gold selected on the free market because of all the monetary metals. It had the lowest percentage supply change, right? It had the most inflexible supply, which made it the best means of storing purchasing power across time. I view Bitcoin as something that's perfected that property of money by taking it to 0%. The money supply does not change at all with Bitcoin. And so it's just this idea that's really as unstoppable as the number zero because it's serving the self-interest of individuals ultimately. Everyone would prefer to hold a money that no one else can print and does not depend on preferably one that does not depend on promises of custodians, and one that lies beyond the reach of any criminals like governments or anyone else that wants to take your stuff. And I think Bitcoin has just given us a lot of these desirable features in money in a way that nothing else ever has.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it lacks the most important quality that money has to have, what qualifies it. But what you're describing about what Bitcoin does, if it was impossible to replicate that in another token, right? If what you're saying is, hey, there's some kind of secret patented formula of this blockchain somehow, it is physically impossible to ever create another digital currency that has those properties, even though they're there, and even though, you can improve on it. I mean, part of the problem with scaling Bitcoin is that the more people that use it, the more useless it is to try to use it as a unit medium of exchange because the network is so slow and the capacity is so limited that it can't affect the type of transactions that other mediums can do. I mean, it can't even come close to what Visa or MasterCard can do as far as processing transactions. And you could use gold as part of that network. So it would just as easy in theory for MasterCard to process transactions in dollars or euros as it is in gold. But it can't do it in Bitcoin, or Bitcoin can't do that with the blockchain. It's just too slow and too expensive. And as more people try to use it, it actually makes it more expensive and more slow. And I've been hearing all this, Lightning Network stuff for years and years and years. In fact, I remember when Bitcoin first came on the scene, most people's radars in 2017, And a number of companies all of a sudden started to say, oh, we're going to take Bitcoin, we're going to take Bitcoin. And it all kind of went away. Even Elon Musk briefly, a few years later, he started saying, oh, we're going to sell Teslas in Bitcoin, and gave that up because it didn't work. And I think now they may have gotten rid of most of their Bitcoin. I'm not sure how many Bitcoin Tesla has left, but that was part of, oh, we're going to use Bitcoin. And now it's pretty much consigned to, we're going to just buy it in ETFs. And, it's going to be, it's just going to go up in price. We're all going to be buying ETFs. Now I'm forgetting the point that you made.
He says that there's an idea that the human race has not improved on zero.
Yeah. I mean, so I think Bitcoin is not just a concept like mathematics. It is something that was created, a product. It's a token that people buy, and there is a network that surrounds it. And man made that, man designed that, developed that, and I think the idea that this is the best, even if I bought into your concept that nobody's going to do it better, no one's going to do it cheaper, nobody's going to do it faster, that this is it. This is the be all end all in digital tokens. Just because it's first. I mean, I'll grant it that Bitcoin was first, and but it doesn't mean it's going to be the last.
Are you familiar with the concept of a Schelling point in game theory?
I don't think so.
It's just the strategy that if a bunch of people are playing against one another and pursuing their own self-interest, it's the strategy that all these inherently antagonistic actors will adopt when they can't trust one another. I think John Nash, who was very involved in game theory for a long time, he talked about ideal money for decades prior to Bitcoin. That's what I see this as. It's like it's a Schelling point. So when you talk about it being disruptable by a future innovation, I don't see what could be more perfect than a money supply that changes 0%. Like how could it be better? You don't want it to decline. You don't want it to increase. You want it to be fixed. My point is that
somebody else Bitcoin is not the only token where you can fix the supply.
It's the only one that's credibly decentralized in a way that offers really high assurance that money supply will never change. It offers more assurance than any other crypto asset that is all others are centralized to some extent and therefore under the influence of somebody or some entity.
Well, they're not all. There's both. There are some that are, but there are others that are not. Right?
No, even Ethereum. Ethereum's the second largest one. It had a chain roll back in 2016. That proves it's not decentralized. If the second largest crypto asset is not decentralized, then none of the crypto assets are decentralized.
Yes, I agree that Ethereum is different than Bitcoin, right? But Bitcoin is not unique in that there's nothing else that offers that, or there's nothing else that could offer it in the future. Now, yes, it's the one that people turn to. People have the most confidence and the most trust in it. Yes, I get that. But I just don't know that that's always going to be the case, especially because I think the prices are going to crash. I think the whole thing is a bubble. And so I think the next time the price does crash, maybe it's not going to go up as quickly as it has in all the prior crashes. And I think, it's going to be for most people just a fad. It's going to, there's a core group of people that are very philosophically, aligned and diehard Bitcoiners, Bitcoin maximalists. You seem to be a real true believer in Bitcoin, but there are a lot of people who own it who aren't real true hardcore believers. They're just on board to make some easy money. That's I think the majority of people that have been buying it in the last few years. I mean, I think the people who really believe in it didn't wait to buy it when it was listed as an ETF. They like you, they've held it for years. I think the new buyers that have come in are speculators.
If I may ask one last question, is there any data or threshold or price point or anything that would ever cause you to change your mind about Bitcoin?
I don't know that it's a function of price, because obviously Bitcoin has gone from next to nothing when I first heard about it. I mean, by the time I heard about it, it was definitely, I'm pretty sure it was over $1. I mean, I know it was under $10. I can't say for sure if it was under $1. I forget. It might have been. I can't remember to that exact amount, but it was a lot lower. So it's gone from a very, very low point in relation to where it is now up to 70,000. And my opinion on it hasn't changed at all. I didn't believe when I first heard about it that it could ever get this big, that, that Wall Street would embrace it the way it did. I mean, so the people who got in on it early and were very involved in promoting it and hyping it up, I mean, they did a great job for that respect of creating demand for what they owned and driving up the price, and selling it. I know a lot of people who are very wealthy today because they got into Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies like Ethereum a long time ago, and they've made hundreds of millions of dollars just by buying, and and now they're selling. They haven't sold out completely, but they've sold enough to buy big houses and yachts and private jets, and they're all around me. So I see all the money that people have made. But they made that money because other people are convinced that they're going to get rich buying now, and I just don't see that happening.
So outside,
but so I don't think, so if Bitcoin were to go to 100,000, 200,000, that's not going to make me change my mind about the ultimate fate of Bitcoin. So it's going to have to be something else. I don't know what that is. I mean, but I mean, I've said before, if I wake up one morning and we have hit hyper Bitcoin utilization or whatever, where it's a Bitcoin world and the dollar doesn't exist and the euro doesn't exist and all these other currencies, and everything is priced. I go into the supermarket and everything is in sats. If then I guess at that point I'd have to concede, God, I was wrong about this. But I haven't seen Bitcoin use case change at all. Even though the price has gone way up, the use is still speculation. In fact, when I first heard about it, I think it was actually used more. It was used like on the dark web. It was used for illicit, illegal transactions. People used it to buy stuff that they were afraid to use, money or their credit card. So it actually was used more early on than it is now. Now it's almost exclusively used to gamble. Whereas it had a lot more uses, originally. And, that's what initially was the appeal, the Silk Road and these transactions. And then people were trying to conduct business anonymously. They were trying to circumvent AML law and KYC and all this stuff. But now, I mean, that's, I think, a very small fraction. In fact, there are other cryptocurrencies that are much better, right? If you want to use a crypto to buy something that's illegal, there are other coins that are a lot more private than Bitcoin, and that's what and people use.
Mr. Schiff, please ask. Well, we don't have much time, Robert. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say Bitcoin Network has processed $7 trillion of transactions since 2009.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you for the clarification.
Though?
That's all I've got to say.
But what defines a transaction?
Thank you for when money exchanges from one party to another.
If you enjoyed this clip, click here for the full episode and here for more just like it. Also, like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money and subscribe to stay connected. Thank you.